And I'm very excited to announce today's guest, who is Dr. Jacob Teitelbaum, and he is author of the book From Fatigued to Fantastic. And yeah, I read this book. This is in its fourth edition, but I read this book. I was telling Dr. Jacob, I read his book. I think it was the original version years ago. So very excited, very honored to chat with Dr. Jacob here. And of course, we're going to be talking about fatigue. No shocker. And so let me get into Dr. Teitelbaum's bio here, as Dr. Jacob is one of the most frequently quoted integrative pain and fibromyalgia medical authorities in the world. He is once again the author not only of the best-selling book From Fatigue to Fantastic, but 10 books in total, and lead author of 8 studies on effective treatment for fibromyalgia and chronic fatigue syndrome. And Dr. Teitelbaum appears often as a guest on news and talk shows nationwide, including Good Morning America, The Dr. Oz Show, Oprah and Friends, CNN, and Fox News Health. And thank you so much for joining us, Dr. Jacob.
Eric, it's great to be with you and with all the folks today. So those of you who have fatigue, pain, brain fog, or just don't quite feel the vitality you want, we're going to give you a nice organized approach how to be feeling fantastic.
Awesome. Can't wait to chat with you about this. But before we do, let's go ahead. If you could just give your background, how did you start becoming an expert when it comes to helping people overcome their fatigue?
Yeah, people ask, what's a nice Jewish doctor like you doing in a field like fibromyalgia and now natural medicine? What? It's basically I got into it the old-fashioned way. I was in med school in 1975 and came down with a nasty viral infection. It was just like we see with COVID and other things. And it basically left me with post-viral chronic fatigue syndrome and fibromyalgia. As I was paying my own way through med school, now my dad was dead, that meant I was homeless and sleeping in parks. The professors knew there had been a virus, but when I was still sick, 12 weeks later, they figured, well, he's depressed, the usual kind of thing. So, there I am, and it's as if the universe put a holistic homeless medical school sign on my park bench. Naturopaths came by, chiropractors came by, herbalists came by, energy workers came by, and they all, sometimes they had pizza, and I even ate. It wasn't uncommon to go a couple of days without eating. And they taught me all the bits and pieces that I needed to learn how to recover myself. So I was able to recover, go back to med school, get my honors in medicine. But I focused on treating the different components of fatigue, especially thyroid, adrenal. We'll talk about a whole host of the different ones that are essential for recovery. And it's complex, but it's not hard. It just takes an organized approach. For those who want, if there's a lot of stuff and you're going, oh, I have brain fog, I can't do this. There's an energy analysis program. If you go to energyanalysisprogram.com, I actually hold a patent for computerized doctor, which I made for people with CFS and fibro. And now we've adapted to energy in general. Do a quick 15-minute quiz. My wife and I decided instead of $400, we would just make it free to everybody, so everybody could get care. And it'll tell you what's draining your energy and how to take care of that. Mix of natural and prescription options for you to work with your physician. So the tools are all here. And we're happy today just try to get an overview that there is something you can do and which things resonate with you. So you can start with those. But I talk about 2-3 things that can probably double your energy in a minute a day. I mean, that's not hard to do, but we'll go through, take it piece by piece.
Sounds good. And you said that website, that was energyanalysis.com?
Energyanalysisprogram.com. You can go, I have a website that sells supplements. It's endfatigue.com, and that's step 3 in the 4-step program. You can just click on that and it'll take you there too. But that will give a comprehensive look at what's going on in each case. So it's fun. I mean, I look at the program, people do that and then they come to see me, and it does a really good job, and it's free. So,
Yeah, it can't be free. So a lot of people listen to this, they have a thyroid condition, an autoimmune thyroid condition. And when we think about thyroid, especially when we think about fatigue, a lot of times we think, or most of the time, arguably, we think of hypothyroidism, low thyroid hormone, including Hashimoto's. But I also wanted you to briefly share your experience because, from what I understand, you had Graves, correct?
After I'd been in practice for many, many years, and it's funny, I'd be on the lecture circuit and I would talk. On here are the signs and symptoms, of thyroid, and I'd point to and say if the outer third of the eyebrows are gone, you have probably low thyroid in the rest. And every time I'd look in the mirror, they were gone. And then I had this period where my weight dropped 20 pounds. Um, and it's good. I'm good at centering and meditating because otherwise, it's having high thyroid, and I had Graves' disease, was an autoimmune basically, and thyroid is sky high. But the joke is that if you have high thyroid, it's like a country western song. You lose your job, you lose your spouse, your dog runs away. It's because you're an emotional train wreck. And that I was able to kind of get in the centered witnessing space. I could watch it and go like, "Oh, this is interesting." But if those of you who find that emotionally you're on a roller coaster, if it's sugar cravings, you want to look for the low adrenal. Forget that feed me now or I'll kill you kind of stuff. But for those who you're first you're wondering if you're manic depressive, you're kind of hyper and then you're depressed and kind of a thing. It's not uncommon with the high thyroid. First, it'll make it high and kind of like overdrive, like 20 cups of coffee a day. But as it burns out and goes to low thyroid, it's very common that you'll see people will be on a roller coaster where the thyroid burns out, it goes low, and then there's another blast of autoimmune activity, and the thyroid inflames again, it goes high, and you get these highs and lows, highs and lows, highs and lows, highs and lows. And that, as long as you know that can happen and just can go to the lab, get a free T4 blood test, and see whether it's high or low at the time. The TSH is one of the worst piece of crap tests ever invented by humanity. But the free T4, and then you can just adjust things, and then you're in control again. Which, for those of you who have had high thyroid, that feeling of being in control instead of just being spun out, very good thing.
Yeah, and when it comes to having a thyroid condition, autoimmune thyroid condition, and experiencing fatigue, sometimes it's not always just related to the thyroid. There could be other causes too. So, can you chat about some of the other common causes of fatigue?
Absolutely, Eric, because those of you out there who you know it's low thyroid, whether or not the tests are normal, or you have overt, elevated TSH, and the doctor goes, "Oh, you have thyroid," they treat you poorly usually about at least half the time. If you find that despite thyroid being optimized, thyroid treatment, you're still feeling crap, then don't, it's okay to find somebody who knows how to adjust thyroid properly. Most doctors have no clue. You know, um, for most doctors, they look at the test and only the TSH, and if it's in the normal range, you're fine. Normal range just means you're not in the highest or lowest 2.5% of the population. A normal shoe size would be size 5 to 13. And Eric, I imagine with my size 12 shoe, or if I put a size 6 on, the doctor would say, in the normal range, there's no problem with the shoe. Um, but once you've optimized thyroid hormone to how it feels to you, not to the blood test, and you still have problems, um, first question I'm going to ask is, do you have trouble sleeping? If it's, yeah, I'm exhausted, I can't sleep, you have fibromyalgia, or chronic fatigue syndrome, two names for most cases, the same thing, or ME, although each of them is somewhat different as well. But you want to look for the other things. So if you have trouble sleeping along with the fatigue, you trip the circuit breaker called the hypothalamus, and that controls sleep, hormones, autonomic function. You stand up, blood rushes to your legs, it stays there. It's called POTS or NMH. So you want to, that's one of the things like the energy analysis program. But if you look at S.H.I.N.E, that will give you a checklist for both looking at the probable things and then how to treat it. So you need to address the sleep. A lot of good natural ways. There's revitalizing sleep formula, terrific ZZZZ, EP 120, 10 milligram melatonin. There's all kinds of good natural things to start with. The hormones, thyroid, adrenal, reproductive hormones. And we can look at each of these as time allows, but you want to optimize these. That the blood tests are normal means nothing. Seriously, that's not how you diagnose. It's one piece of information that helps, but it's about 20% of the information. 80% is simply the symptoms. If you get irritable when hungry, you need adrenal support. Thyroid, achy, weight gain, cold intolerant, thyroid support. If you're a male and you're in your 40s or 50s and your cholesterol is going up, your blood sugar is toying with going up, your blood pressure is going up and getting a spare tire, you have you're probably going to have low testosterone if your testosterone level is under 500. And then there's other hormones too. Hypotension. For those of you, for anybody who wants, much of the stuff that we're talking about, there's a 4,000 word information sheet that I put together for people with chronic fatigue and fibromyalgia and long COVID, which is just post-viral chronic fatigue syndrome. You can email me. My email address is fatigue, FATIGUE, DOC. So fatiguedoc@gmail.com. And just ask for the fatigue or fibromyalgia or POTS or long COVID information sheet, and I'll just send it over to you. But the other H in S.H.I.N.E is hypotension. You stand up, blood rushes to legs because of gravity, stays there, doesn't go back up. Pulse may race with it. Doctors will usually miss it. Very, very, very treatable. And then infection is nutritional support. And, uh, so B vitamin deficiencies, other deficiencies, B12, iron, a host of infections, viral, antibiotic sensitive, candida, biggie. If you have nasal congestion, post-nasal drip, gas, bloating, diarrhea, constipation, uh, you probably have candida, especially if the gas doesn't have much smell. If you have these silent but deadlies, everybody in the room goes, you know, then that's small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. That's bacteria splitting the gut sulfur off the amino acids. And SIBO, small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, is a manifestation of low thyroid. And until you treat the thyroid optimally, the gut will be sluggish, the bacteria will back up from the colon into the small intestine and cause small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. So in addition to clearing the bacteria, you've got to optimize the thyroid if you want that SIBO to go away. So there's all these different things, sleep apnea, the book goes through it, the article will go through the quick list. But that's S.H.I.N.E. Am I having trouble sleeping? Hormones, hypotension, infections, nutrition. You look at those four things and you're going to get a massive start at recovery.
How about the E? You didn't mention, I don't think, the E,
E
right?
is exercise is able. So that's not so much, if you're a couch potato, that contributes. But a lot of you, if you have the fibromyalgia, you can't walk very much, or you're going to be wiped out for 3 days and bedridden. It's called post-exertional malaise. So you're afraid to do any exercise, so you decondition, which is just as bad. So you want to see how much you can walk, even if it's 50 steps, whatever it is. Some of you may be bedridden, others are walking wounded. But you want to see how much you can do walking so you can stay conditioned, but without crashing after. You want to find that middle path. It's not harming you that you get that crash. It's just unpleasant. So don't be afraid of it, but don't try to get it. You're not helping yourself by doing it.
Okay, I'd like to dive a little bit more into the S.H.I.N.E protocol, just because, even though there's more to this, but just this protocol alone can make a big difference in someone's fatigue, and just that first one, the sleep. So can you talk about reasons why, or some of the more common reasons people have difficulty falling asleep, staying asleep, and especially those tough cases, because there are some people that I consult with, and it seems like they've tried everything. They've taken melatonin and valerian
They,
root and all these
they,
other supplements,
they,
and
they haven't. I lecture all the time out there. People, I've tried everything. Really, have you tried this? Oh no. How about that? No. And how about that? No. I never once have found somebody who said I've tried everything. That when I ask them a couple things, it's been yes to all of those. So, so here's the thing: many reasons for the sleep issues. Um, Number one, as we mentioned, this is an energy crisis where cellular energy production goes down or can't keep up with demand, and when energy drops to a certain level, the area that uses the most energy for its size, which is that hypothalamic circuit breaker in the brain, which controls sleep, hormones, autonomic function, goes offline. So you can't sleep. That's why that paradox of can't sleep even though you're exhausted tells you you have hypothalamic dysfunction, which is what fibromyalgia and chronic fatigue syndrome are. Um, so Number one, the direct low energy causes it. Number two, uh, average weight gain. In two of our studies, and these are beyond the 8 treatment studies, 32 and a half pounds is the average weight gain in fibromyalgia. I don't care if you're eating like a bird. The metabolism goes down, people gain weight, so they get sleep apnea and sleep disordered breathing. Um, People often wake up in the middle of the night with sweats because of the low blood sugar from the low adrenal. They have the hormones are low, so they'll trigger the sweats. They'll have infections that trigger the sweats. Acid reflux will trigger the sweats. So there's a lot of things that can affect the sleep. And the book goes through an organized way. Here's how you tell for each of them. Boom, 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 boom. For daytime sleepiness, you fall asleep at the TV or the wheel of the car, look for sleep apnea. If you're waking up hungry, get take a nighttime protein snack and some adrenal support at bedtime. It's not hard. You take a Pepsid for 3 nights, and if you're waking up and the sweat goes away, then it's acid reflux. So these are easy kind of things. How do you fix it? If you do a high enough dose of any one thing to get you sleeping all night with the fibromyalgia, you'll be hungover till 3 in the afternoon. Each treatment has its own half-life, which means it's kicked out of your body on its own schedule, regardless of the other stuff you're taking with it. So if you take a low dose of several things, it's not going to be so high as to leave you hungover the next day, but it's not going to be high enough each one to get you sleeping. But you take several, they gang up in the middle of the night, get you sleeping like a kitten. So what do I start with? The Revitalizing Sleep Formula Herbal Mix, which is a mix of 6 things, including valerian, passion flower, 5-ACP, and others. Terrific ZZZZ, a mix of 4 essential oils. The EP120 melatonin, which is a sustained release, which is what you want. Um, so for natural things, the smell of lavender. If you feel, as you're during the night, a heavy blanket, they're called weighted blankets. Kind of like, have you ever taken a baby and swaddled it and it calms right down? The heavy blankets swaddle the nervous system. A night mask, $15. These things are cheap on Amazon. The herbals you can find on my website or Amazon. Um, the so all these different natural things you can try. There are ANS Rewire, which is for those of you who can't tolerate anything by mouth, pills and supplements at all. Just you can't handle it. ANS Rewire by Dan Neuffer, Neuffer, or Dynamic Neural Retraining System. No pills. They reset the hypothalamic limbic system, that whole sleep center. And that by itself can often make this problem go away with no pills. You can do it online. I think the NRS is about $250 to get the program online. And I'm not sure what Neuffer's ANS Rewire is. Both are superb. And then medications, trazodone, flexeril, even tiny doses of Elevol, although it has the weight gain. And some people need Ambien for sleep. Certainly it has its issues, but for initiating sleep, the Z meds are often necessary, helpful, and I think that the benefits way outweigh the downside for those who tolerate them all. How's that? And now you see how I got my college nickname of Rambling Jack. So, yeah.
I appreciate that. That was great. And some of the other components of Shine also, I think, could also interfere with sleep. So, like hormones, high cortisol, infections. Have you seen like infections,
Yes,
especially like stealth infections, also affect sleep?
absolutely. That's why I mentioned that the night sweats, a reflection of a common pattern with adrenal problems is that people will be irritable and hungry. If you have relationship problems, get adrenal support because you get this low blood sugar and then this irritability. And it's, yeah, I see people in marriage counseling and divorce that it's just low adrenal. You give them, I like Adrenaplex. It's a nice mix of a bunch of things like glandulars, licorice, B5, vitamin C, all the things the adrenal needs. And it'll smooth that right out along with their energy. So we see that the adrenal tends to be low during the day. The blood tests are normal, useless. I mean, helpful if you know how to interpret, but normal means nothing. Um, Again, you have a size 12 shoe, a foot, a size 6 shoe is normal. I can give anybody a size 6 shoe, and it's normal, no matter if they're 400-pound, 6 foot 10 Texan. So you look at the symptoms: irritability when hungry. Normal morning cortisol is about 18, and at nighttime it has to drop below 2. Otherwise, your mind is going to be racing at bedtime. So, well, I don't have the blood test. Don't need it. If your mind is wide awake and racing at bedtime, your cortisol is not dropping low enough to sleep. Exhausted all day, mind racing at bedtime. Irritable all day, mind racing at bedtime. Get phosphatidylserine. Find it on Amazon. It's cheap. 100 to 300 milligrams 90 minutes before bedtime. Start with 100, then the next night 200, 300. It'll drop the cortisol so you can sleep if that's a problem. But what happens then is that cortisol too low during the day, doesn't drop enough at bedtime, and then it plummets at 2 in the morning, and you wake up wide awake, hungry from low blood sugar. So a simple test and treatment for that: eat protein, hard-boiled egg, cheese, meat, fish. Protein is key, not sugar, not carbs. An ounce or two at bedtime, and that may put off the drop in low blood sugar till later. But that's why I start with 100 of phosphatidylserine, because it will drop your sugar in the middle of the night too. Don't want to go the lowest dose that keeps you out.
Yeah, I like phosphatidylserine. I'm glad you mentioned that. How about some other natural agents like ashwagandha or L-theanine? What do you think of those, just out of curiosity?
So the revitalizing sleep formula has the L-theanine in it. I designed that formula. Money for the products I designed goes to charity, so I don't take money from pharmaceutical or natural industries. Um, so the ashwagandha, a study we just finished. I haven't published it yet, but we'll talk about it, where we gave a mix of ashwagandha, rhodiola, green tea extract, licorice, a couple other things. It's called the Smart Energy System. You can find it on my website. It increased stamina, energy, and sleep. Stamina went up, I think, 80%. 60% of people benefited. They knew within a month. Um, and it was quite dramatic. The ashwagandha supports adrenal, but I'll give it more in the morning. You can give it at nighttime along with a phosphatidylserine. There's a product called Sleep Tonight for those who have mind wide awake and racing. The Sleep Tonight is a simpler way to get the phosphatidylserine and ashwagandha together, and that will also help the nighttime sleep. Um, so, but the smart energy system was awesome. It just that was one of the studies. We've done 4 studies in the last 2 years. Um, 2 of the studies on a product. If you're outside of the United States, you can go to recoveryfactors.com, and that's a immune serum supplement that was quite dramatic. But for those in the US, the Smart Energy System, plus there's something, the only supplement I keep on my desk, if I need an energy fix, it's called HRG80 Red Ginseng. Get the chewable tablets, because half a tablet, I take just half a tablet when I need it. It tastes good too. So my inner child's going, give me, so I don't want that. So, but in the studies, it increased energy in average of about 60%. Um, so what I like to do is decrease the pill count. I don't like people to have to take handfuls of pills. So the Smart Energy is one drink and 2 capsules replaces God knows how many pills uh, by using the chewables of the HRG80 red ginseng tablets. It's half a pill to 1 pill a day. And uh, you may want to try it one day, Eric. If you're just having a day where it's kind of really crazy busy, I could feel it. I'm energy sensitive, so I could feel it in seconds. It's
Hmm.
quite dramatic. And that study
Yeah.
was published about a year ago.
Yeah, I might need to give it a try. So that's not something it sounds like that you would want to take at night. That's something more in the day to help with energy.
Yeah, the Smart Energy System, the other in the morning things. But the Smart Energy has the ashwagandha you were asking about. Ashwagandha balances adrenal function along with numerous other things. Brand matters. I'll use the KSM 66. I'll use the Euromedica or Europharma um, one. So I, some things like the phosphatidylserine, I don't think the brand makes a difference. Some things like the ginseng, my guess is 95% of ginseng products out there are useless. Probably more than that, because the active components are gone. It's not the wild ginseng. Doesn't work. I'm
Yeah,
I'm I'm, I'm picky when it matters.
yeah, you should be. I mean, it's
Yeah.
yeah, you don't want people to waste their money, understandably.
Mm.
So, yeah, well, thank you for sharing that, Dr. Jacob. And how about sex hormones? Can they also, like sex hormone imbalances, estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, can those play a role in fatigue as well?
Absolutely. And in sleep, progesterone is your body's natural Valium, and it's important to men as well as women. So in women, the tests, FSH, LH, and the other tests for menopause and perimenopause do not start to become abnormal until 5 to 12 years of hormone deficiency. So you don't want to wait for that test and then for your periods to stop. If you're in your 40s and you're getting, now again, I want to distinguish between irritable around your menses, which is PMS, which is progesterone or fish oil deficiency, omega 3. And for the omega 3s, I like Vectomega because one a day instead of 7 big honker fish oil pills. Um, but if you have this around your menses, you get headachy, you have trouble sleeping, the insomnia, brain fog, or energy plummets. That's estrogen or progesterone deficiency. And I will use the bioidentical progesterone you can get over the counter. And I just drop in, those tend to be pretty good. You're looking for about 30 milligrams of the topical is what I use. And then I'll use a bioidentical estrogen, not the Premarin poison that the doctors tend to give because it was profitable. Um, so that the test, 20% of the information, that around your menses, you crash and burn, that's what tells you that you need it. And then you take it and you feel better than you know. So the testosterone, as I mentioned a bit earlier, in men go through perimenopause. Before you drop under a testosterone of 200, which is what you have to be abnormal in the labs, um, you're going to go low normal levels, about 500 or 400. And the way that you tell, cholesterol goes up, blood pressure goes up, spare tire around the waist, pre-diabetes or overt diabetes, those things numbers go up and other things won't go up. It gives you the thing of testosterone deficiency. Libido goes down. Lost libido, another study, 73% people with fibromyalgia have horrible loss of libido. And your spouse should know it's not because they're ugly or fat or whatever. It's just that's part of the condition. That takes longer to improve, but it does. But certainly low testosterone in men, low estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone in women plays a big role in the whole process. But again, you go by symptoms predominantly, and you go with bioidentical treatment. If the labs are low normal, or you have the symptoms, I treat in my population, unless there's a reason not to. And then I see how they respond. And if they got better, then their hormone was low. That's to me how the diagnosis is made.
Okay, makes sense. And then infections, including long haul COVID, because there are,
Mhm.
these days people suffering from that and they don't have an answer. People suffering
Yeah,
from
there
Lyme
is an
disease,
answer.
Bartonella. You
Long,
mentioned
long, long COVID is very treatable. Just lack of physician education. There's no expensive medication, so nobody teaches the doctors. It is very, 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 very treatable.
so
Sorry,
it
I just
doesn't take a real long time. It sounds like it's to treat either.
no. It just takes knowing what you're doing, or having a doctor who does. So let's look at infections. There are dozens of infections that can trip the hypothalamic circuit breaker. How many ways are there to blow a fuse or a circuit breaker in your home? Countless. Same in your body. Um, a lot of the antibiotic infections, we talk about Lyme disease and the co-infections. But again, the Lyme tests are grossly unreliable. The holistic tests are positive on virtually everybody. I've seen 2 negative tests and the main Lyme lab that did not have some infection positive in 30 years. It's just, to me, a test that's positive on everybody is not a useful test. And then you can go to the standard labs and the 2 main national labs for most doctors use. And as British medical journals said, so they are just so wrong that don't bother with the test. Just flip a coin; it'll be as accurate, in terms of whether you have it. So we have no good testing. So I go by symptoms. And so, and since a lot of people have the positive Lyme test, even whether or not they have it, and tetracycline is set, it's helpful even in the absence of infection. It shuts down microglial activation. That's activation of, you can think of brain inflammation, although it's a little over vivid. It settles that down. Low dose naltrexone settles that down. All these things, but so for when you have the Lyme and it doesn't go away completely with the antibiotics and stay gone, you want to go after the S.H.I.N.E protocol. And you want to consider low-dose naltrexone. Your Lyme doctor will know about that generally. That's a compounded prescription. Um, so, and Candida, very important. I'm going to say it again. Nasal congestion, postnasal drip, chronic sinusitis, gas, bloating, diarrhea, constipation, mouth sores. If I get 2 or 3 of those symptoms, I'm going with the antifungal diflucan for 6 to 8 weeks. I'm going with a natural antifungal and a good probiotic. There's all kind of natural antifungals from grapefruit seed extract and to topilic acid and dozens of different ones. And I'm going to give it for a long period. And I'm going to stop feeding the yeast because yeast grow by fermenting sugar. You're going to sugar crave, not the irritable, get out of my way or I'll kill you, you know, adrenal fatigue, low adrenal blood sugar. It's more what I call the happy Twinkie hunter. Something sweet which should be nice, and you're going to the cabinet looking for it. And that's because the yeast are putting out a chemical to say, feed us, and look for the sugar. Those cravings go away when you kill the yeast with the antifungal protocol. And viruses, countless viruses. And then some viruses trigger other virus release, like Epstein. We're seeing now, again, the Epstein-Barr tests are positive in 95% of healthy adults. That doesn't mean you got it. Okay. But if you have recurrent viral symptoms, you have flu-like stuff. You started with a viral illness. When you feel sick, you feel kind of flu-like, sicky kind of a thing. I'm going to go with the antivirals. And 4 months, Famvirus and Celebrex can be very, very helpful. And I'll use things like ViraPro, which is an elderberry mixed with a bunch of other things. That's what I take myself. If I'm traveling, because I lecture quite a bit, I'll take the ViraPro one twice a day while I'm traveling, or if I had COVID, or just periods of COVID rolling through town, I'm going to be stimulating my immune system, keeping it healthier with a ViraPro and a good multivitamin. So there's a lot of infections. The book talks about how you tell is it antibiotic sensitive, viral, fungal, because they have different symptom patterns and that they stand out once you know the patterns. And then I treat them. If the person gets better, they had it.
Yeah,
But
what
I,
what the
Mhm.
I was gonna
I'm
say with
sorry.
the LDN, the low dose naltrexone, how long do you typically keep people on? I'm sure it varies
It
depending on the
it
person,
take
but
it takes 2 months before you see anything. It may mess with your sleep in the beginning, in which case they will make a starter pack. I tell people don't expect anything for 2 months. I started using LDN 40 years ago, 35 years ago, and I said, "No, take it for a month. Didn't help anybody." Tossed it on to the next thing we were trying. I didn't give it enough time. It takes 2 months to start. Once it starts, most people, once they're feeling better for 9 months, I can wean them off of most everything, but I encourage them to stay on the multivitamin. I like Clinical Essentials multivitamin tablets, not the capsules, tablets 2 a day. Um, I will keep them on something for sleep, whether it's an herbal or 25 milligrams of trazodone or whatever it is long term, just because otherwise they're likely to have the next stress push them over the cliff again. And the low dose naltrexone, it's 70 cents a day. Once you've been on it, it's really benign and well tolerated. And I'm inclined, what I do in 9 months, when people are feeling back to themselves for 9 months, I pop the question, which is, are you ready to come off the stuff? And it's funny, it's like half of them, it's like, oh, yes, what can I get rid of? And we go through, and here's how you get rid. And the other half, it's the only way you're getting any of this away from me is out of my cold dead fingers. I want to see if that matches people who are against gun control or whatever. I don't know, but it's just like that half and half split. And I tell them that's fine. You can stay on it as stuff we're giving. You can take as long as you need, as long as you want. Let me know if the one you want to come off it.
okay, makes sense. And then getting back to the long haul COVID, uh, do you recommend ivermectin, or is that more
Oh
for
yes.
like for
No,
acute COVID, or do you
yes,
have
yes,
people stay
yes,
on that?
yes, 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 because it works. Um, and even for post-vaccine, I'm not an anti-vaxxer. I think vaccines used wisely are one of the four main benefits of modern medicine. Most people don't remember polio or smallpox. That crap was nasty. Um, but it's been turned into a major business where we turn our kids into pincushions. Um, so I took the vaccines because I was traveling. I couldn't get into Berlin to visit my grandkids without it. So I took it. Otherwise, I probably wouldn't have bothered. because I feel quite comfortable getting my immune system strong enough to handle without. The studies on ivermectin show that it decreases death by 30 to 70% in COVID. So why all this? No, there's no evidence, because evidence is defined as if there's not a 95% statistical probability. If you have a study that decreases deaths 70%, but you don't have enough people in the study to get that meet that 95% statistical mark, that's no evidence. Using their definition, there's no evidence that parachutes work. I could see Fauci now in the airplane. Now the captain would be saying, "We're going down. Distribute the parachutes," and Fauci would be like the steward person. He'd be blocking the door. Saying, "No, there's no evidence parachutes works." I took the ivermectin when I had it. I had a very pleasant COVID experience of 4 days drinking my iced tea and reading my Kindle. It's so again, it's okay not to. There's no bad people here. It's just the economics that anything cheap is being, I think, suppressed by the pharmaceutical industry. And the pharmaceutical industry controls our government. They do. I mean, we're the only country in the world that Medicare can't negotiate drug prices. We gotta pay whatever they say. The pharmaceutical industry, I can see them in the boardroom pouring shots of expensive tequila, saying, "What's we charge for this bill? Oh, $1 million." Everybody laughs, and then they say, "They gotta pay it. The law says they gotta pay whatever we charge." So yeah, Congress is controlled, and that's not Congress's fault. We tell Congress, raise 1,000 times what they're going to pay you in bribes. That's what they are. And then represent us. It's like, that's not going to happen. Um, and then the media, once it became legal, we're the only one of two countries in the world where pharmaceutical industry can advertise direct to the public. So they own the media now, because the media will not publish anything to piss off their advertisers. So you're going to see most of the stuff. And again, they're all nice people. They're all good people. There's no bad guys here. It's just the economics of the situation. So the short answer, yes, ivermectin works very nicely, including for reasons I can't even begin to fathom, post-vaccine fibromyalgia. But in those cases, they have to take repeated courses of the ivermectin. But again, the dosing is usually about 27 milligrams a day for 4 to 5 days. It works very nicely, but you need proper dosing.
All right, wonderful. Well, thanks for sharing. And then the N, nutrition. So I assume whole, healthy foods, plenty of vegetables.
Common sense, cut down the sugar, increase your salt intake. If you salt restrict this disease, you'll crash and burn because of the adrenal issues. You'll find high protein. Everybody's different. See what feels best to you. High protein is the most common diet that feels best to people. Um, and then again, a good multivitamin, clinical essentials, 2 tablets a day. The capsules are fine, but you need more of those. I like to keep the pill count down. So 2 a day. Um, if I'm during periods where COVID is running through town, I'm going to do the ViruPro. But if you do clinical essentials, get the Smart Energy System. If you go to the homepage of endfatigue.com, it'll have these three. I put those three there. The third one being the HRG80 Red Ginseng. Get those for a month. Most people, it doubles their energy. And the studies we did with the Red Ginseng and the Smart Energy more than doubled, in terms of that. So that's a quick, easy start for people. That gives overall nutritional support. That's really good. But again, we we Australia was founded because Britain sent all of their criminals and crooks and hookers and everything to Australia, because they didn't want to pay for prisons. And they sent all their Puritans to the United States. These are people who said anything that feels good for you is good of the devil. Insanity is that. So Australians, even though they call it the blot or the stain, I find they're much more fun. They were the troublemakers, or the Puritans, who are so annoying. Can you imagine, whether you're looking at evolution or a divine being that created people, that either one of them would make people so that whatever feels good and you enjoy is bad for you? That, why? That's insane. Now, when the food industry gets hold of things, they try to addict you by modulating foods in ways that it will feel good but are incredibly unhealthy. But if you're getting the natural whole foods, Chocolate's a health food. You don't get 140 pounds of sugar in your diet each year if you're eating a whole food diet. You get that from the food processors. So basically, things that you enjoy, and then ask the question, how's it working for you? And that's how you figure out your diet. What leaves you feeling the best? Not just an hour later, because sugar will give you zing, but then pow, crash. You know.
All right. Well, awesome. Well, thanks for sharing. And you already kind of touched upon exercise. Some people aren't able to incorporate exercise right away. They might have to focus on the first four components
Yeah,
of the SHINE protocol.
yeah. In
Um,
about 10 weeks, your energy will skyrocket, and then you'll be able to condition instead of crashing.
yeah. So, what CFS, chronic fatigue syndrome, fibromyalgia? I mean, years ago, of course, most doctors thought it was all in people's head. It was psychological, but even these days, there's not really a great test. So I think it really comes down to what you said earlier,
Mm.
just really going by symptoms and how people feel. Correct?
Are you exhausted? Lasted more than 3 months? You can't sleep despite being exhausted? You've got it. You've got widespread pain and brain fog. That confirms it. I can give you 30 other symptoms, but it's a symptom thing. If you're not sure if you have it, go on endfatigue.com. Step one, it's step one or step two, is a free quiz that will simply in 5 minutes tell you if you meet the criteria for CFS or fibromyalgia. It's not rocket science. There's a test that's $700. I wouldn't waste $700. No, tells me no more information than simply doing the free quiz. To have diagnostic criteria. But in medicine, if things are very complex, there's not a test for it, and it affects women. And what I've just described are immune illnesses, immune and autoimmune conditions. Then medicine has a habit of saying, I don't know what's wrong with you, so you're crazy. That's abusive. Multiple sclerosis used to be called hysterical paralysis. Lupus and rheumatoid arthritis used to be considered neuroses. And if you want to understand how the medical profession views women, despite half of doctors being female now, it's an institutional thing, is you look at the word hysteria, the medical word, comes from hystero, which is Latin for uterus. So if you walk into a doctor and they imply to you and your family, I don't know what's wrong with you, so you're crazy. Now, if they say, I don't know what's wrong with you, I'm sorry, let's find somebody who does. That's honest. You're coming to me with a book from Bypass to Fantastic and the scalpel and say, I want heart surgery. I don't do that. I don't know it. It doesn't make me a bad doctor. But if the doctor implies to you or your family that I don't know what's wrong with you, so you're crazy, what I want you to do, stand up, walk over to the doctor, smile and say, and give him a kiss on the head if you want, and say, Doc, thank you for letting me know right away what a complete and utter idiot and asshole you are, so I don't waste my time with you. And I will let everybody know that you're an abusive schmuck who's clueless. Walk out the door, slam it, and say, this doctor is abusive and crazy. I recommend you all leave and go. And you can put enough ratings online. That abusive behavior is no longer acceptable. Can you imagine if you had multiple sclerosis and the doctor was too lazy to learn about it? And you go, I don't know what's wrong with you. You're crazy. You're paralyzed and can't see out of one eye. That's not acceptable. And there's
Yeah.
not
Well,
to be tolerated anymore.
yeah. I mean, we even see this in the thyroid world. And you mentioned early with like the reference ranges. Someone walks in and, their TSH is a 4.2, which is within most lab reference ranges. And they won't test they might not even test the thyroid hormone levels because the TSH is within the range and the person's experiencing fatigue and brain fog and coldness.
It's
And the
insane.
doctor's like, yeah, I don't know what's wrong. Everything looks good.
Yeah, give the doctor a size 6 shoe and say, wear this to the next appointment, doc. This shoe size is in the normal range. Want to wear it. Better yet, find a doctor who knows what they're doing. And you may have to go to a holistic doctor. I was going to go into endocrinology when I was in medical school. I'm a science geek. They used to call me the Phantom because 3 in the morning I'd be in the medical library going through the stacks, reading and stuff. I know God loves me because the most beautiful girl in the world was attracted to science geeks, and she married me. It's like, I can't imagine why she did, but it worked for me. Um, but the bottom line is just find a doctor who knows thyroid. The testing is ludicrous. When I was lecturing in Italy at they'd have a fibromyalgia conference once a year all over in different parts of the world. They move it from place to place. And that Professor Gunther Neek, who is the world's leading researcher on hypothalamic thyroid disorders and fibromyalgia, and I asked him point blank, is the TSH test reliable in fibromyalgia? And he said, absolutely not, which is the truth. It's not. It's a useless piece of crap test. That's the definition. If you look up TSH in the dictionary, if it was a proper dictionary, it's a useless piece of crap test. Sorry.
Well, thank you. Yeah, this has been a very entertaining interview as well. I mean, you speak the truth as well. I mean, you're entertaining, but again, I can't argue what you're saying. It is sad that many doctors just rely on the TSH still to this day, and then some will actually do a free T4, or some will do a total T4, not a free
And
T4. But anyway,
endocrinology is 50 years behind the scientific literature and it's not likely to change. I realized I could do better endocrinology as an internal medicine doctor. So I just took that pathway.
yeah, one I know we're running out of
Mm.
time, but just circling back to thyroid, and if their thyroid hormone, if everything's in balance, so let's say just TSH looks within the perfect optimal range, even though we're kind of dismissing TSH, but also the free T3, free T4, within the optimal range. Everything's looking good from a thyroid perspective, but they're still experiencing fatigue. So I guess that's when they still need to
S.H.I.N.E.
dive into that SHINE protocol, correct?
Yes. And like I said, just you can start with the HRG80 red ginseng. Start with the smart energy system. Be sure you're on a good multivitamin with high levels of B complex and magnesium. Easy starting place. Start with the N in nutrition and just build that up. For a lot of people, that will make a big difference. You're not sleeping, go after the sleep. That's the next stop. Next stop, nasal congestion, irritable bowel syndrome. Get the candida. A couple of simple stops for most people that can make a massive difference.
All right, wonderful. I mean, there's so much more we could talk about, but I will tell them to read your book because there's so
It's in
much
the
more
book.
information in your book, and maybe we'll do a part two one day and dive into some more information related
Well,
to fatigue. But
we may want to address pain on a separate issue. How do you get pain relief? That's another horror story in our country. Almost all pain is treatable unless you go to your MD. Go
yeah,
to your
well,
chiropractor. You have a
it's
lot better
treatable, but
chance.
they'll give you the drug, so it's not like it's treatable. They just want it's not curable if you go to the MD, but if you want
It's,
to be
it's,
on
barely,
drugs
it's
for the
barely
rest of
it's
your life.
barely treatable. A third of American adults suffer with chronic pain needlessly. 50,000 Americans die from ibuprofen-related medications each year. You won't hear about that research because they don't want to piss off the advertisers. And ibuprofen advertises. The NSAIDs advertise 50,000. This is a conservative number. 50,000 preventable U.S. deaths a year. You
Wow.
have Curamin, you have a whole host of things that can be used for pain that are in head-on studies more effective, and you get side benefits instead of side effects. So, forgive me. Thank you for saying it's entertaining. Sometimes you got to laugh or cry, and so I'd rather I caricature things. I know because it's
Up, I think Dr.
it's
Jacob. Oh,
discard
there he
that.
is.
But if it's useful, take it. You know, use it.
All right. Yeah, you froze for a few seconds, but you're back now. But um, yeah, no. Again, it was entertaining in a good way. I mean, obviously, you also provided a ton of knowledge, and I appreciate it, and definitely recommend for everyone to check out your excellent book, From Fatigue to Fantastic, the fourth edition. Make sure you check out. And where can people find out more about you, Dr. Jacob, besides your book? I know you mentioned a few websites along the way, but if you could just go any place you want people to find out about you, let us know.
www.vitality101.com has the information. So you look up, there'll be a 4-step program on how to recover. Email me fatigue, FATIGUE, DOC, @gmail.com for the information sheets. Just ask for the fibro information sheets or fatigue information sheets. I'll email them to you. For those with infertility, because you're going to see that with low thyroid, you can ask for the infertility information sheets also. Um, for the supplements I mentioned, Amazon has most of them. If you want to support my outreach work, then endfatigue.com. E-N like Nancy, D like David, fatigue.com. And then we have a Facebook page. I don't know what it is. I think Dr. Teitelbaum or something. But if you email me, I'll send you the Facebook address.
Yeah, and I'll make sure to include everything in the show notes, so including your Facebook page. So yeah, you could check out the show notes as well. And again, thank you so much, Dr. Jacob. Appreciate your time and again your knowledge. And yeah, we'll definitely have to get together for another interview in the future, talk about pain, how to overcome pain, get a little bit more detail. But for now, check out Dr. Jacob's book, From Fatigue to Fantastic, as well as the websites, which I'll put in the show notes. And again, thank you so much, Doctor.
You're welcome. Be well, everybody.
All right, so let's go ahead. If there are questions, it looks like there's a lot of comments here. So someone just asked about earlier the site name, the energyanalysisprogram.com. So thanks for sharing, Diane. And
Hi,
then
Diane.
What was that?
I was just saying hi to Diane. I know her.
Oh, okay. And then we got a wow from Chanel. So
Oh,
Chanel,
thank you,
very
Chanel.
impressed. And then Diane, also the fatigue doc at gmail.com, and ask for the CFS info sheets. And I think, is this the same email? Yeah, this is your email here. And Chanel just said, thank you, Diane. And yes, appreciate Diane. Let's see. Oh, the desk, that was the ginseng.
It's
Yeah, the
HRG
HRG50
80.
red ginseng. Yep.
HRG 80 red ginseng. Get the chewable tablets.
Okay, and then we got Lisa who says, hi, Dr. T.
Hi, Lisa. I live in Hawaii, so aloha.
And then, oh, actually, well, this one was first. Anything you have to say about goiters, thyroids?
Well, I mean, the obvious thing is you want to take a 6.25 milligram of iodine. I like tri-iodine is a very good form, and make sure that there's not an iodine deficiency that's going on. Of course, have it be checked. You want to make sure that there's not naturals or even a cancer that's an issue. Low thyroid can cause, TSH stimulates growth, so it can get bigger. So I'm going to give, in the presence of goiter, I'm going to give iodine, and if there's any suspicion on my part, I'm going to give thyroid. Now, again, what form of thyroid? There depends on the person. Some people do fine with the T4 Centauride kind of thing. Most people, I'm going to start with desiccated thyroid. Some people need high dose T3. It's not like one size fits all any more than shoes are. There's different sizes and widths and everything. It needs to be adjusted to what feels best to you, making sure that the free T4 is not elevated. Low is okay, but making sure it's not in the top 20% or higher for safety. And that's the bottom line for how I treat thyroid. Adjust it what feels best to the person. Keep the free T4 from being high for safety. Once the TSH is under 1, I stop checking it. It's okay for it to be low, in my opinion. Treat the person, not the test.
Okay. What iodine do you do? Like urinary testing for iodine, or?
No, try iodine. David Brownstein's a friend of mine. He's very good. And he said, well, you do the skin test, you put the iodine on it. If it absorbs, and I say, yeah. And I ask him, how often is that negative? He said, never. So why do you do it if it's always positive? I don't. I give the iodine. And then if I, after, 3 months, a bottle of 90 tri-iodine, that will fill the tank. And most people, that will keep it good and solid and give a nice long supply and take care of it.
Yeah. Another question, just because I know other people that, even if they're not listening now, might have. Have you seen any problems with that dose of iodine with like Hashimoto's patients or Graves' patients at all?
So here's the key thing. Number one, with Hashi, you take even low doses of iodine, which they need. You're stimulating the thyroid because it needs the iodine, and it's coming up. And some people will flare their Hashis. and in those cases, I'm going to start just with a multivitamin level or even low multivitamin. As the level works up and the thyroid gets back up to speed from the iodine, then it's going, oh God, and then it wants it, then it can take the rest. Um, the key problem I see with iodine at the 6.25 higher milligram dose is there's a small subset, it's like less than 1%, I think, where it will cause heartburn from hell. Think about putting iodine on a cut. Ouch, and some people have bad gastritis. And it's not, I would think they would take it and right away they would get that. No, it's 3 days into it. They'll go and get all these stomach tests and it's really nasty pain. And it takes 3 days to go away. So for those of you who take the iodine and get horrible, nasty solar plexus heartburn pain, stop it. Give it 3 4 days. That's uncommon, but that's the key side effect I see. But what I'll do is start people on the multivitamin, clinical essentials, have a little bit of iodine, enough, for maintenance, and then you do that, get through that initial, you don't want to go from low iodine to too high. Do that for a month, then start the iodine.
All right. Well, thank you. And this is just a comment. Thank you, Dr. Jacob and Eric, for hosting this informative information. And yeah, thank you for
Most
tuning
welcome.
in.
Mhm.
And then nfatigue.com. Definitely check that out. Okay. Well, the Dr. Jacob
Get get
already mentioned about the
get checked
goiters.
for get checked for Graves' disease when you're talking
Yeah.
about exophthalmos or
Yeah.
the bulging eyes. Um, it's a funny thing. Smoking decreases, it actually settles Graves' disease, but it worsens the risk of exophthalmos. It's funny, there was one medication that was being based on the nicotine that was being used for thyroid. Um, and I guess it threatened the pharmaceutical industry, so they arrested the guy because, well, he gave the governor a flight on the plane. Like him for $200 million, like pharmaceutical industry, that's okay, but you offer him a ride, and they're a semi-natural kind of a thing. Um, when you see the eye bulge, you need to be seeing the endocrinologist. You need to be having checked for Graves' disease, and you want to nip that in the bud. That's easier to do prevention. Um, so the eye bulge is a different thing. Look for Graves, goiters, low iodine, hypothyroidism, but the eye bulge with it, different animal. Get it checked. That's when you go see an endocrinologist.
Yeah. Uh, um, and then also, I do have a podcast episode where I interviewed Dr. Ronnie Bannock, who's a neuro-ophthalmologist. So she has a lot of experience with thyroid eye disease. So also, you could visit savemythyroid.com, click on podcast, and then check out her interview. And I assume this person knows you just because before the call, you said you're from Annapolis, Maryland, before moving to
Oh
Hawaii.
yeah, at
Can you
Tracy,
recommend a
I
good?
I don't know Tracy, but Dr. Alan Weiss is superb.
Oh, okay, okay. I figured she alright, so yeah, maybe she
I,
knew
d-
you
I,
when you or knew of you when you practiced in, Annapolis, I don't
I
know.
don't know, but if I did know you, Tracy, I didn't recognize your name. Sorry, but
Okay. Alright, and then, is it Brubacher? Or
yeah,
Brenza, okay, Brenza, so fatigue to fantastic energy revitalization system powder vitamin has been, discontinued for good, or?
I think Nature's Way, which is making it, has discontinued it. It's becoming a very big product. It's going more for the consumer lines,
Okay,
our companies. So and it's a complex product. I'm talking to another company um, to see if they'll make it. There's interest, but that will probably take a good year. There's a vitamin powder. I don't like people taking handfuls of pills. And there's what nutrient do people need? All of them. There's 50 nutrients and getting them all in pills was very difficult. So there's a vitamin powder that had all of them in one scoop, and it was cheap, and and it just covered it all. So that was discontinued by the company that made it. But Clinical Essentials is a very, very good multi. But again, get the tablets, take 2 a day, and if you, I have a newsletter. You can sign up at either of my two websites. Sign up for the free newsletter. I basically put it out when I have something to say, but we'll keep you up to date on what's happening with the vitamin powder as we move forward and trying to have it made with another company.
All right. And then Patricia, sorry I missed most of your live because I'm at work. Looking forward to the replay. So yeah, definitely check
Mhm.
that out. And then yeah, Lisa, learned a lot from this live. Ma'alau, Dr. T.
You're welcome.
Um, okay, so iodine even with hyper, and then
Goes goes
I
goes
thought you
goes
should take
goes
iodine
goes
if you're
go slowly because initially it can stimulate the goiter, but it will suppress the hyperthyroidism over time. So again, work with a functional doctor who knows how to guide you with that. And again, read David Brownstein's book Iodine. It'll give you a much broader understanding. You should have
right.
David on your show if he'll come.
Yeah, I actually have yeah, he's never been on the podcast, but on my blog, I actually years ago, probably like 10 years ago, I emailed him and just email asked if he would do like a blog post interview because then I didn't have podcasts and I wasn't doing interviews on like YouTube. And so I actually have on my Natural Endocrine Solutions website, if you search Dr. Brownstein or just put in Brownstein, probably I'm sure it would come up and
Okay, good,
have
good
that
man.
conversation. Yeah. And then Karen, thank you for all the info.
Welcome, Karen. Yeah.
And then another hello from
Hey, Sandy.
Sandy. Okay, and then Maria, do we need vitamin D? 50,000 IU's.
No. So here's the thing with vitamin D. I don't think the tests are reliable. We have too much conversion to the 125 form that's not measured, especially inflammatory diseases and fibromyalgia. So I think the test can be helpful. If the test is low, I'll give 50,000 units 1 day a week for 12 weeks, not every day. That's you probably be okay, but there's too many conditions where that can cause mischief and it's not needed. Too much iodine, too much vitamin D can suppress immunity. That can go both ways. It's a double-edged sword. More is not better. I like 1,000 to 5,000 units a day. Um, and in the multivitamin, the vitamin powder, we had 1,000 units. Clinical essentials will have enough. So more is not necessarily better, but I think most people should be on a multivitamin that has at least 400 units of D and preferably 800 to 1,000 a day. To me, that's the sweet spot. There are some people who do better with higher, especially with chronic pain, things like that. But 50,000 a day every day, be pushing it a little bit. There are people getting into trouble with that.
Yeah, and I don't know if she did. Yeah, she didn't specify daily. I know a lot of medical doctors will give like 50,000 IU's per week. I agree. 50,000 per day is like a massive amount of vitamin D. So yeah, definitely wouldn't recommend that. But
But putting that in perspective, if you lie on the beach until you're a nice pink, your body's making 25,000 units. So again, it's not, oh my God, what did I do myself? But it's more is not always better. So,
mhm.
you know,
Yep, and I imagine being in Hawaii, you probably are relying a lot on the sun, getting regular sun exposure.
sunshine is healthy. Avoid
Yeah,
sunburn, not sunshine. The current
yep,
advice to avoid sunshine is utterly insane.
yeah, and then Chanel. So again, yeah, like with the eye bulge, as Dr. Jacob mentioned, look into
See your
Graves. I mean, that's
endocrinologist. See your endocrinologist
yeah,
at
definitely
that
see an
point.
endocrinologist. We can't diagnose here, but with hyperthyroidism, you can have a goiter too, and then the eye bulge. So the eye bulge definitely is more likely to be
I, I, I,
Graves with
I
us.
bulge. See the
Yep.
endocrinologist.
Yep. Oh, actually, let's see. Someone else says eye bulge, and then Tracy says thank you. Someone else says thank you, and then
Well,
Christina. Hi, Dr. T. I tried desiccated thyroid medication a while ago, but it put me into hyper in a few days, and I felt horrible, like I would
just
pass out.
try this out. Some people, T3, which is the active thyroid, which by the way, once you're taking T3 by mouth, T4, you take it by mouth, you measure the blood, you see how much is in the body. T3 doesn't work that way. T3 is not made where it has to pass through the bloodstream. It's made in the tissues. So the normal ranges for blood tests are meaningless if you're taking thyroid T3 by mouth. Those of you taking T3 by mouth, whether it's on the desiccated or cytomel, and you're going to have a regular doctor too that's not thyroid savvy, when you go for, if they order a T3 blood test, get it in the morning before you take your thyroid dose. If you take thyroid by mouth, the test will always, usually generally be high. then the doctor will panic and take you off even if you need it because they don't understand this. So if you, everybody's different. You know, if I take even a little bit of T3, like if I took desiccated, I feel horrible, or most people feel better with desiccated. So if it made you hyper, don't use it, and then try just um, the levothyroxine, the T4. But here's the thing: is that there's some people who need a lot of T3, some don't tolerate any, but there's some who they need a tiny dose, like half a microgram a day. They have periods. I'd have periods where I would feel like somebody pulled a plug on my energy. And a friend of mine, makes the liquid T3 where you do a drop and it's like, 1 microgram. Um, and I would do half a drop and I'd be like this. Um, but I would take like a tenth of a drop and it's like the lights went back on. So T3 dosing is funny. You have to remember the roller coaster. You're getting highs and lows. You have to, sometimes thyroid's going high, sometimes going low, and you need to adjust it. But it's like trying on shoes. You have to see what works, which form, and dose works best for you.
All right, sounds good. Lisa asked, can you describe what Pro Boost is for?
I've moved from ProBoost, which is a thymus hormone mimic. I use that a little bit, but more what I'm using is the ViraPro these days. Both of those help the immune system to optimize.
Okay, and then Maria, who was taking the vitamin D, the 50,000 it was per week that she was taking it.
That's fine.
Um, and then I've seen 4 endocrinologists, but no help in Canada for Graves' eye disease.
I'm
And
going to put that to you.
yeah, well, again, I would say, I mean, thyroid eye disease is an immune system condition, just like Graves. I mean, they typically go hand in hand. So you still want to do things to improve the immune system health. I mean, I wish there were more functional medicine doctor like Dr. Ronnie Bannock. She's in, I think in Manhattan, but she's a ophthalmologist, but also practices functional medicine. So someone like her would be great, to chat with. Or yeah, again, you could always schedule a consultation with me as well. But thyroid eye disease, yeah, I will say most endocrinologists, they're going to refer the person to an ophthalmologist. Typically, the endocrinologist is going to do one of three things for hyperthyroidism: one, antithyroid medication; two, radioactive iodine, which you wouldn't want to get with thyroid eye disease; and then three, thyroid surgery. None of those are doing anything for the immune system health. And so typically they'll refer someone to an ophthalmologist, and even an ophthalmologist, it depends on the severity of the thyroid eye disease. If it's in the active form, a lot of times they won't do anything except wait until it's in the inactive form. And unfortunately, and I don't think it's available in Canada, but there is something in the United States that's been around for a few years now, Tepezza. Um, Tepezza, which is like a biological agent. And there's some information on my website, naturalendocrinesolutions.com, and Dr. Ronnie Bannock spoke about it. Again, it's not addressing the cause of the problem. It's involved. I won't get into detail, but it involves like 8 infusions over like 3 weeks apart. But that's something that I guess is better, in my opinion, than doing nothing or the surgery. But you know, again, I could talk forever about this, but doing things to improve the health of the immune system, is really what you want to do with Graves or any autoimmune condition. And, thyroid eye disease, again, falls under that category. So I'll leave it like that, or else I'll be the one that's rambling for another, for 5-10 minutes. But let's see, we got, are you still okay on time, Dr. Jacob?
I
I
have
know you
all
said
the
you,
time. I'd stay until all the questions are answered or until
I
you
know.
close this now.
Yeah, you told me that before this started, but I didn't expect this many questions. So I just want to double check with you
It's
just to make
important to me
sure.
that people have someplace they can ask
Okay.
and get information. So,
All
um,
right. Can you read this, or I could read?
yeah,
Didn't realize you could have goiter with hyper. This makes sense
you
now.
can.
Doctor said I probably or may probably have Graves. Yeah.
And there's other antibodies for Graves' disease as opposed to just a TPO antibody and the rest. So they should be able to sort that out. And there's uptake scans. Um, so there are ways to sort through the different types of thyroid disease and see which one's which.
Yeah, and when I dealt with Graves, I had a mild goiter. It wasn't really, so you definitely could have a goiter with hyperthyroidism.
Mhm.
Um, and then Jan, another thank you, Dr.
Welcome.
T. Um, Christina, Dr. T. So many women in their 50s have dry eyes. Is there
Yep.
natural recommendations for that?
There's a phone app called Cures, Cures, capital A dash Z. Um, and in that, I have everything from acne to zoster and look up dry eyes. So, what you'll see, it's very common with fibromyalgia related and other conditions to see it's called Sicca syndrome, SICCA. The doctor will check for Sjogren's. You won't have that. And okay. So what do? Number one, omega 3s and omega 7s are critical for moisture in the body. For the omega 3s, I don't do regular fish oil because you have to take so much. Most of the stuff is just, it may as well be taking soybean oil and it's rancid, and then you get fish oil burps, and your cat will like it because your nose will go up like a fly. What's that? But I don't go there. I take the Vectomega myself, one a day, one or two a day. It's like 7 to 14 fish oil pills. So VECTO, Vectomega. There's a sea buckthorn oil, and the product I recommend is called Omega 7 Dry Eyes. I know I have the Vectomega on my set. I think I have the Omega 7. All of this is on Amazon too. Um, so the omega 7 dry ice, that's a little more expensive. It's two twice a day. It takes 2 months to start working. It moistens everything. Take the clinical essentials because the B vitamins, magnesium, these other nutrients are important. Also for eye moisture. So these are the ways to begin. Also, make sure that you don't have a fan in your room or an air conditioning system that's blowing across your bed because you're going to dry your eyes out at night. So if the dry eyes are worse when you wake up in the morning, it could be as simple as that, and sometimes a little eye mask or something to keep the moisture in as well as the light out can be helpful.
All right, thanks for sharing that as well. And then a follow up, I'm on thyroid meds, have Graves 3 years, and active eye over a year. Tepezza not available here. Yeah, just check out again. I would say check out my website. I have, besides the interview with Dr. Ronnie Bannock, which is on the podcast. I have a few podcast episodes on thyroid eye disease, a few articles, 5 things you need to know about thyroid eye disease. Again, when someone comes to me with thyroid eye disease, I'm treating the immune system because it is more of an immune system condition. Obviously, if it's like severe and someone has, like risk of optic nerve compression, things like that, you would need to see an ophthalmologist. But yeah, so, and then I was just diagnosed with Graves, but when my new endocrinologist took blood, he said there were no Graves antibodies. He then said because of my slight eye bulge, he thinks it's Graves, just a bit confusing.
Good, good. Because again, as your body heals, the antibodies go away. I'm antibody negative and I checked
Yeah,
because
yeah, not
what?
everybody has antibodies, so yeah, you
Well,
can't
I was
really.
antibody positive, but
Mhm.
as the disease heals,
Yeah. Oh, same here. Same here. When I was first diagnosed with Graves, my TSI was elevated, and then yeah, it normalized as I got into remission. So, but all right, and then just a couple of thank yous, and I think that is it. So thank you, and thank you, thank you, Dr. Jacob, and thank you, everyone. That was great with the questions.
mhm.
Thank you so much for tuning in and asking questions. And Dr. Jacob, thank you so much for staying to the end to answer all the
my ple-
questions.
my pleasure. It's fun. Um, and again, for those of you out there, when you go to the doctor and your doctor says, "I'm sorry, I don't know how to help you," tell them thank you, and go find somebody who does.
Yeah, I can't agree with you more. And on that note, again, thank you, Dr. T, and thank you, everyone. And hope everyone has a great rest of your Friday and a wonderful weekend ahead.
Be well, everybody. Aloha.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Doctor.